Grand Theft Auto 5 ruined gaming, and in this video I'm going to explain why, how, and what it means for the future of video games. Way back in 2013 when Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, I played through the campaign on Xbox 360, thought it was incredible, and then I hopped into Grand Theft Auto Online when it came out. I can't remember, it was like a month or two later. And then, like a lot of people, I was kind of disappointed at how buggy it was, how long it took to find games, and then I ploughed through pretty much all of the content in GTA Online, and then I dropped off once I'd completed everything, and it felt like there were a few too many cheaters flying around destroying everyone, a few too many griefers, and not enough new things to keep me occupied. The online racing did keep me coming back for months and months after this, but eventually I stopped playing until, of course, they released the PC version and the next gen versions, and they brought me back with first person view, and suddenly I could play at 60 frames a second. And that got me back into doing the races again. I played for another few months, and then eventually I kind of let it fade away and started playing other games. Now this time period happened to coincide with the end of the Xbox 360 generation, the entirety of the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 generation, and now the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 generation. And across that time, I felt a kind of dissatisfaction with gaming. I felt all the time like there just haven't been any generation-defining games. There haven't really been those kind of games that hit a perfect 10 in every single aspect. There's been some incredible standouts for sure. I think my favourite game of all time was The Last of Us Part 2, and Red Dead Redemption 2, also by Rockstar, is just an absolutely incredible game. But even as those games have had incredible stories and gameplay and graphics, it always felt like they weren't quite the complete package. You know, The Last of Us Part 2 didn't have multiplayer, for example. That would have been really cool. It didn't really have like a big open world you could get lost in. It was a kind of one and done experience. Red Dead Redemption 2 had a really mature story, but the online felt very stale and boring. It didn't really get its teeth into me. It just felt like it wasn't quite what I wanted the game to be. And over these generations, I think I've finally started realizing what went wrong after the Xbox 360 era. It's that I was comparing everything to Grand Theft Auto 5. I've just started playing through Grand Theft Auto 5 again, kind of in preparation for Grand Theft Auto 6, and also because I'm a little bit bored of Call of Duty, which is the normal game that I stream. So I've been playing through Grand Theft Auto 5's campaign on stream, and having an absolute blast. It is such an incredible game. Every single stream that I've been playing, I've come across missions and experiences and situations in the game that I'd completely forgotten about, but they've just blown me away. From huge elaborate set pieces during missions like hopping onto a train as Trevor, or flying a biplane into the back of a moving cargo plane, or doing some of the heists and the getaways, to even really small, seemingly insignificant things like little interactions with NPCs, or watching the NPCs interacting with each other, or just making that kind of perfect cut through traffic without scratching the car. There's so many incredible moments in the game, and they just don't seem to let up. I'd say out of the, 15 to 20 hours that I've played so far on stream on this most recent playthrough, there's maybe been 1 hour, the bits in the cargo dock where you have to be like messing around with cranes and stuff. I'd say that was the only time that I wasn't fully enjoying the game, that I wasn't super impressed by it. And this is an Xbox 360 game. Just to make sure that I wasn't absolutely crazy, that I wasn't like, oh, okay, this is just a modern version of an Xbox 360 game, like a rebooted version. I actually loaded up the Xbox 360 version on my Xbox 360. I've still got the disc version. I loaded it up, played through the prologue, and was still blown away. It's incredible. Yes, it runs at 30 frames a second, and the resolution isn't that great, but the gameplay really is, and the writing is still there, the voice acting's still there, the incredible animations are still there. This game was just as astounding back when it originally came out in September of 2013 on the Xbox 360 as it is now in 2025 running it on a high-end PC or on the Xbox Series X. And in lots of ways that's super impressive. You can look at that and say, well, that's just what an achievement Rockstar did. They are masters of their craft. They made a game that has truly stood the test of time. But you can also look at it another way and think, Why hasn't anybody else been able to do this since? Why hasn't anyone else been able to make a game that has this kind of impact, that gets its hooks into people quite as much, that provides what seems like the full package for a video game in nearly 12 years? Looking at the game's Wikipedia page, it's estimated that the budget overall for Grand Theft Auto 5, and this is including marketing, which I know some people leave out, estimate that the game cost about $265 million to make, which was one of the most expensive games ever made back in 2013. It took 5 years to make and a development team of over 1,000 people. So that could be the answer, couldn't it? That could be why Grand Theft Auto 5 has eclipsed pretty much every game that's come out before or since, because they just put an insane number of resources into it. They had all of the money from hits like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and Grand Theft Auto 4 and Bully and Midnight Club. I don't know if Midnight Club was ever that successful, but I absolutely loved it. But they had all of the money and all of the backing from those successes to be able to put into a game. They just had the resources that other development studios don't have. But a news story started circulating yesterday, showing the development costs of some of the Call of Duty games. This all came out from a kind of weird court case where some parents of the victims of a high school shooting are suing Activision because the people who perpetrated the shooting were addicted to Call of Duty and they thought that that might have had something to do with it. But anyway, because of that court case, Activision actually put into the court documents how much some of the Call of Duty games cost to make. And normally I'd be super skeptical of any of these kind of figures because they might want to inflate the figures to make it look like it didn't make as much profit as it did. You know, that's a common thing in the entertainment industry to get out of paying people. But in this kind of situation where it's a court case about a high school shooting, I don't think they would have any particular reason to do that. But anyway, these are the figures that we've got, and they're the only figures that we've got. In that, they said that Call of Duty Black Ops 3, which came out in 2015, so only 2 years after Grand Theft Auto 5, I thought that's the closest one, so we don't have to worry as much about inflation and stuff like that. So that came out in 2015, and that cost $450 million. So just to put that in context, Grand Theft Auto 5, that cost $265 million, and then Black Ops 3 cost $450 million. That's insane. The news article about Call of Duty went on to say that 2019's Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and I don't know if this includes Warzone or not, cost $640 million. So that was, you know, an extra $190 million on top. And then Black Ops Cold War, which was supposedly a game that was rushed, a game that they didn't have as long to make as they wanted to, that cost $700 million to make. Now, like I said, it's hard to rely on just, you know, how realistic all of these estimates of costs and things are and what they include. The Call of Duty costs definitely include them working on the game for the year that it came out as well, all of the extra content that they added to it, as well as development and marketing. And the Call of Duty games have like 14 studios working on it. I'm not sure how many staff are at each of those studios, but I would assume all in all there's probably more than 1,000 people working on these games. But still, even with all of that taken into account, the idea that Grand Theft Auto 5, this game that completely redefined what we expected from video games, that put other video games to shame for 2 console generations since it came out, cost about, I would say, a third of how much Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War did, just absolutely blows my mind. It's not even like the fact that Grand Theft Auto 5 took 5 years to make. Back then, that seemed like a really long time. But now, you know, with Call of Duty games, Black Ops Cold War arguably took 2 or 3 years to create. Black Ops 6, which just came out this last October in 2024, that took 4 years to make, so only 1 year less than the entirety of Grand Theft Auto 5. That makes me think it's more than just a huge budget and being able to spend a long time making a game that made Grand Theft Auto 5 special. There's something much more significant than that going on. The CEO of Take-Two recently said in an interview that the reason for the success of Rockstar's games, the reason whenever they've done sequels that they've been more successful than the previous one, even though that's not really a trend that you can see in other areas of video gaming, is that they're always wanting to do something new. They always want to push it out a little bit further. They want to try and do something more than what the previous games did. They always want to try and do a little bit better than before. And I think that you can really see that in Grand Theft Auto 5. If you're old like me and you've been playing the Grand Theft Auto series since the beginning, there were huge leaps between Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2, Grand Theft Auto 2 being a much more polished game, even if maybe it lost a little bit of its edge because it went for that kind of futuristic vibe, but still, it felt like a much more advanced game. Then Grand Theft Auto 3 was a massive leap beyond that. Vice City was a big leap on top of Grand Theft Auto 3. You know, you were going around buying businesses, the world felt way more exciting, way more stylish. Then San Andreas came along and felt like it gave you a whole state to play with. It was absolutely huge and let you do so many more things. Then Grand Theft Auto 4 came along, and the difference in technology between Grand Theft Auto 3 and 4 was just absolutely incredible, particularly in terms of the animations and the car physics. And then Grand Theft Auto 4 to 5 was another absolutely insane leap. Everything was much easier to do, the map was so much bigger, the story was much more ambitious, having 3 characters now instead of just one to play as, 3 protagonists. It felt absolutely huge, and obviously GTA Online was a massive leap above what they were doing in the multiplayer for Grand Theft Auto 4. It feels like Rockstar have really taken a step back after each Grand Theft Auto game and been like, we don't want to do that again. Even though the games were incredibly successful, they haven't decided, hey yeah, that made us a lot of money, let's make another one just like that. Instead, they've decided, okay, how can we have that same impact again? And I don't think many other games are doing that. Now, I don't want people to come away from this video and think that I'm saying no games have been good since Grand Theft Auto 5. Like I said earlier, Last of Us Part 2 is probably my favourite video game of all time, and there have been video games that have really pushed things forwards. Games like Titanfall, Minecraft, Baldur's Gate 3, Fortnite, they've all done things in a really interesting and different way. They've changed what we think about video games. And while I would say none of them have done it as comprehensively as Grand Theft Auto 5 did, none of them have quite managed to raise the bar so consistently in so many different areas and really stand the test of time. There has been lots of creativity and innovation. Grand Theft Auto just kind of mixed that ambition and sense of scale and focus on incredible gameplay with that willingness to go a little bit further, that willingness to do so much better than what you did before. Right now, in this current generation, the Xbox Series X generation, the PlayStation 5 generation, I really feel like a lot of big game publishers, a lot of big game developers have kind of decided, hey, we want to find a game that does something really well. We want to find a game that makes a lot of money. And then once they find that, they just keep reiterating on it. That's why, you know, Call of Duty, we had Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019. That was a big deal. It kind of changed up the formula for Call of Duty games, raised the bar a bit. We had Warzone that was really, really impressive. And then since then, we've basically had the same game year after year after year. They just keep on iterating on that. They don't want to change too much. They don't want to change the way it works because it's making them money. So you can see in the Call of Duty games, they're not looking back at the last one and thinking, oh, okay, how can we have that kind of impact again? How can we have another Modern Warfare 2019? Instead, they're just like, how can we literally have another Modern Warfare 2019? How can we make a game that makes money in exactly the same way? They're not trying to outdo themselves what they did before. They're just trying to do the same thing. And each time it's a little bit less, it's a little bit worse. Occasionally they do innovate. You know, I'm not saying Call of Duty doesn't ever try something new, but it does feel like they haven't had that kind of leap again since Modern Warfare 2019. You know, we're coming up to 6 years now since that game, and we haven't had that kind of leap forward again, because instead they just keep on releasing the same game. Similarly with Sony, who have been making some incredible single-player games, they've often fallen into this trap. You know, they reinvented God of War for God of War 2019, did an absolutely incredible job with it, and then God of War Ragnarok was like, yeah, that works, so we'll do some more of that. Spider-Man, absolutely incredible game from Insomniac. Spider-Man 2 came out. It was kind of the same game again. You know, it obviously expanded on things a little bit. There was a bit more you could do, a few new extra skills, new suits, shinier graphics. but it didn't have the same impact again because it was essentially just the same game. The same with Horizon. I'm assuming it'll be the same with Ghost of Tsushima going over to the new one coming out this year. It feels like they try to find something that works, and then they just keep on doing that. Bungie did it with Destiny. You know, going from Halo to Destiny felt like a huge jump forwards. They were really pushing the boundaries, doing something new, and then they released Destiny 2 that was, you know, more Destiny. I really do think Rockstar have been in a league of their own with Grand Theft Auto. I think with Red Dead Redemption, they managed to do it with that too, in terms of Red Dead Redemption 2 being such an incredible game, doing something that other people just hadn't done before, a game so huge in scope and ambition. And they sort of let themselves down a little bit with Red Dead Online. I still don't really know exactly what went wrong with Red Dead Online. If anyone can explain to me in the comments why it isn't as fun as GTA Online, I'd love to hear someone explain it properly. But even with Red Dead, they couldn't quite do it the same. Something about the Grand Theft Auto series really lends itself well to reinvention, to being able to do something bigger and better and different to what they've done before. And I do think they did it so well that it has kind of ruined the rest of gaming. It's made it harder to enjoy other games, because whenever I'm playing anything else, there's always a part of my brain that's like, yeah, it's good, but it's not GTA 5. I recently completed a playthrough of Cyberpunk 2077, and it was like, oh yeah, this game's really good, but the city feels kind of dead and lifeless. There's less interesting things happening in it compared to Grand Theft Auto 5. The Witcher 3, an incredible open-world RPG, but the missions that you're doing all feel a bit like they're quite similar to each other, you know, unlike, say, Grand Theft Auto 5. There's lots of games that have, you know, kind of good writing and voice acting, but it's not quite as good as it is in Grand Theft Auto 5, and lots of games have great soundtracks, but their soundtracks aren't quite as good as the one in Grand Theft Auto 5. It set the bar so impossibly high, way back in the Xbox 360 generation, that we're kind of 2 generations later and we still haven't got back up to it. In a way, I feel like this must be a nightmare for developers who are working right now, because not only do you need a studio with the kind of resources and the ability to give you the time that you would need to even try to challenge something like Grand Theft Auto, but Rockstar also have all of that built up experience, and they've got a publisher in Take-Two that trusts them enough that is willing to let them do something incredibly risky. Grand Theft Auto 6 is meant to be coming out in 2025, and they've been working on this for around 10 years. That's an insanely long time to be working on a video game now. Like, paying an entire development team to be working on a game for that long is incredibly expensive. And I'm willing to bet, you know, lots of people would say, oh, well, Grand Theft Auto 5 made an insane amount of money. I'm sure they trust them because they know it'll do the game. I'm willing to bet Grand Theft Auto 6 won't just be Grand Theft Auto 5 in Florida. I'm willing to bet it will be something new, it will be something beyond what Grand Theft Auto 5 did. It will be something utterly spectacular. And that brings with it a certain element of risk. Maybe Grand Theft Auto 6 won't be as fun in some ways. Lots of people played Grand Theft Auto 4 and thought this isn't as fun as San Andreas. It didn't feel like you were as free as you were in San Andreas. It didn't feel like it was as easy to control as San Andreas. It wasn't necessarily as funny as San Andreas was. They took a risk, and I think they moved gaming forwards with Grand Theft Auto 4, but that didn't necessarily mean that they were going to make as much money. There must be lots of developers in the gaming world who desperately want to achieve something like what Grand Theft Auto 5 did, but getting that combination of near infinite resources and infinite trust from a publisher must be insanely difficult, if not impossible. I know people have talked about Larian with Baldur's Gate 3, that they kind of spoiled gaming for a lot of different companies because they made an RPG so good that other people can't even begin to challenge it, because Baldur's Gate 3 took so long to make and so many resources that it's just like unfeasible for other studios to do the same. So what are their options? Well, right now a lot of other studios are just doing the kind of easy way out, I'd say. And obviously it's not easy, all game development is hard, but instead they're just sticking with tried and true things that make a lot of money. Things like Call of Duty and FIFA and, you know, new versions of racing games, we'll get new Formula 1 games and new Need for Speed games, and we'll keep on getting all of these sequels to games that did well. And the sequels probably won't be quite as good, but they'll be a bit shinier, they'll add a few new features in, and most importantly, they'll be able to hook you into playing to make sure that you spend a lot more money. But I think there are two lessons that all developers could probably learn from Grand Theft Auto 5. And that's that when you're making a game, you either need to do something far better than anyone ever has before, or you need to do something new. I don't think the Rockstar developers would ever be content just doing something as well as someone's done it before. I don't think they'd ever be willing to make a game and say, oh yeah, we don't quite have the resources, we don't quite have the time, so we're going to make something that's not quite as good, and then ask people to pay for it. Instead, they're saying, okay, if we can't make something much better than what we've done before, then we'll make something different, then we'll do something that nobody else has tried before. And I wish more developers could take that approach. Like, now that Microsoft is in charge of Activision, I would love it if they let some of the Call of Duty development studios go away for 5 years and work on something that they were passionate about, something new, something different. You know, you look at studios like Raven that have made incredible games in the past. Like, they made Hexen and Heretic and Singularity. They made some really truly amazing and innovative games in the past. Let them go away and make something new. Let the Blizzard development studios try something different. They don't just need to keep on churning out more World of Warcraft and more Overwatch and more Diablo because those are the things that make money. Let some of those studios take the time, because Microsoft has the resources to allow them to do that, to really make something special. And I think, to their credit, Microsoft has been doing that a little bit. You know, they let Rare take the time to make Sea of Thieves, and they're letting them spend a lot of time on what's called Everwild. I think that game that they announced absolutely ages ago and we haven't heard anything since. They've let Playground Games work for a very long time on Fable. They've let that other company, I can't remember what they're called, Private Division something? That company that's now working on Perfect Dark, they've let them just spend loads of time to work on something new, to work on something different without forcing them to release something. I would love it if they took that approach with the Blizzard and Call of Duty developers. And for smaller development studios, I really wish they'd take that approach of, if you're not going to be able to do something better than other people have before, then do something completely different. I've been really disappointed over the last few years to see so many development studios with real talent at them, you know, people who have worked on Halo and Battlefield games and Call of Duty and things like that in the past, coming out with games where you look at them and you think, it's another sci-fi extraction shooter, or it's another game that's a bit like Battlefield, or it's another game that's a bit like Call of Duty or Counter-Strike or Overwatch, and they're kind of saying, oh, it's our own spin on that kind of formula. And it's always just like those games, but a little bit worse. And why would people play those? Why would people keep doing it? Why did Ubisoft put so many resources into making X-Defiant, into making a game that was just like Call of Duty, but not quite as good? That seems like such a huge waste of those talents. So the point of this video wasn't to say that Grand Theft Auto 5 did anything wrong. I think Grand Theft Auto 5 did exactly the right thing. And by doing that, they showed us that everyone else is doing the wrong thing. And they kind of ruined gaming, because they set my expectations so colossally high that everybody else has been kind of disappointing me for the last 10 years or so. But oh well, Grand Theft Auto 6 is hopefully coming out in less than a year, and fingers crossed they're about to do it all over again.